Hey guys, I'm back this week with a really fun, exciting recipe. I've been really looking forward to doing this video for you guys. With Thanksgiving is this week and the baking season has really started up for me, preparing all my food to go to our Thanksgiving with relatives, and then it just goes right into Christmas. So I love this season. I like to cook. I like to cook everything. I like to cook meats and salads and all that, but my favorite thing is baking. I love when I get an opportunity to make cookies or cakes or biscuits and rolls. So this is my favorite part of being in the kitchen. So today I was going to show you guys how to make, it's a really festive holiday cookie. I don't make it often. I only make it about one time a year. And this year I thought, well, instead of making it at Christmas time, I was going to make it for Thanksgiving. And we might grab a couple before Thanksgiving and enjoy them here at home. But these are they're like a pastry type cookie. The what do you call it? The pastry. It's not like a drop cookie. You roll them out and it's more of a pastry taste. We've got butter, we've got cream cheese, and that's going to give you more of a pastry tasting cookie. So, and then we've got the ground walnuts and sugar, and you mix that up, and that's kind of like the filling, and you put it inside, and then you make these cute little I call them like little satchels. They look like a little purse, kind of tight at the top, and they're baked they're very flaky and just super delicious. Everybody loves them, but I only make them one time a year because it's that kind of cookie that takes time. When I'm in a hurry, usually it's chocolate chip cookies or oatmeal cookies, but once a year I make these and I take the time to make them, and everybody loves them, and it kind of keeps them looking forward to it every year. So I wanted to show you guys the process. So I'm making these to bring to Thanksgiving, and so I thought, hey, I'm going to show you guys how it's done. Kill two birds with one stone. I'll show you and I'll get my dessert for Thanksgiving made. So I use my KitchenAid, and I've got the cookie paddle here. It comes with several different attachments, but that's the one I use. So let's get this thing out. There we go. So it's got 3 simple ingredients. We have butter, we have cream cheese, and we have flour. And it's a pound of butter and a pound of cream cheese. So just those 2 ingredients, it's going to be delicious. So these are softened because you want to be able to cream them. And I left them out for a couple hours, and they're nice and soft. And then I've got a pound of cream cheese, so that's 2 blocks. So I'm just going to put those in my KitchenAid, and I'm going to cream them. So that'll take, a couple minutes in here. Alright, now that our butter and our cream cheese are creamed together, we're going to add our flour. Now you'll notice there's not any sugar in this. The filling itself, you're going to be mixing sugar into the walnuts, and it's going to be plenty sweet, but the pastry, you just want it to be like more of a non-sweet kind of a pastry. And so I've got the last ingredient. I've got 3.5 cups of flour, and I'm just going to add that in there, and I'm going to mix it up, well mixed, and then I'll turn it off. I don't want to over mix it and make them tough. That's the thing with working with biscuits or pastry type things, is you want to mix it well, but you don't want to overwork it, because then it will become tough and it won't be like that flaky, buttery, crispy kind of a cookie. It'll be more tough. So I'm just going to mix it just until it's well mixed. Okay, so I wanted to come real close to the camera and show you something. You wouldn't have been able to see it from back there. But when I stopped this and I took it out of the thing, I want to show you how you can notice how there's a lot of butter not mixed into the actual dough, so this needs to be mixed more, but I didn't want to keep it going in the KitchenAid because that is going to overwork it. So once it's pretty well mixed, I'll stop the KitchenAid and then I'll take it out and I'll take my spatula and I'll scrape it off and I'll hand mix it and get it well mixed. And I can tell a lot better by doing it by hand than if it was on the KitchenAid, and then that way it is fully mixed but it isn't overworked. So I'm going to stop and I'm going to finish mixing this, and then we're going to move on to the next step. The dough is all mixed now, and so now we're going to take this dough, we're going to divide it into little balls and get it into the refrigerator while we start to prepare the filling, and that way it can kind of firm up. Right now the butter and the cream cheese, it's pretty soft, so trying to roll these out would be a complete mess. So I like to put them in the refrigerator for at least 30-45 minutes, maybe an hour, and it'll just get a much stiffer dough that it will roll out nicely, almost like a pie crust. So right now this dough is really sticky, and so to be able to take this and make little balls, I usually have just a big bowl of powdered sugar sitting here, which that reminds me, I had said that the only ingredients in here was the flour, butter, and cream cheese, and that there wasn't sugar, but the sugar would be in the filling. Well, there is also a lot of powdered sugar that you use when rolling it out. So that's getting incorporated into the dough as well. Kind of like when you roll out a pie crust and you put flour on the counter to keep it from sticking. We're going to do that same thing, because we're going to be rolling out little mini circles about this big, and we'll use powdered sugar instead of flour to keep it from sticking to the counter. So that's going to get worked into your dough as well to, add a little bit of sweetness there. But I just keep it, I don't really have a measurement, because it's more just, using it while you're working with the dough. So I will just put a little bit on the counter, and then I can just kind of grab it and use it as I need it. I do want to mention, I put all the little individual balls on a cookie sheet. I have this pre-cut parchment paper, which I love having them pre-cut. I'll link that. If you go over to my blog for the recipe, I'll link it there. I usually get a box. It's about $2.15 a box, and I love these things. So anyway, I will just keep that there, and then I will get an amount, and we'll see how many we come up with. It all depends on how big of a ball you get, but I generally would have maybe about this size, and so we'll see how many. It'll be a little bit easier on the recipe. You can just look and see exactly how many. So I'm just gonna roll it into a ball, so it's about that big, what you're looking for, and just place it on the parchment sheet. So let's get an amount, and what actually I like to do is let's just dump it in the bowl, kind of roll it in there, so then it makes it much easier. Like if you were to try to do this, I'll show you, see how it just rolls up really nice. I'll just get an amount and I'll show you what it looked like if I didn't do that. See, it's just sticking all to me. It's like really sticky. So if you just dump it into some powdered sugar beforehand, get it kind of coated, then you can just roll it up really quick. So I'm going to finish doing this to all these, to all this dough, and then I'll let you know how many I came up with, so it'll give you kind of more of an idea of how many that you're going to want to divide this into. I came up with, let's see, 26 different balls. So, you know, that kind of gives you a little bit of direction on to when you start dividing it up. I came up with about 26. So now these have been coated in powdered sugar, so they're not going to stick to each other, but I still probably wouldn't have them touching sides because the powdered sugar is kind of sinking into the dough itself. And so now I'm going to take this and go put this out in the refrigerator, and then we're going to start making the walnut filling, and then we'll get these out and put it together. So I'll be back. Now we're ready to make our filling. So this has got ground walnuts, it's got some sugar and a little bit of milk in it, but I did weigh out my walnuts just because I wanted to make sure I got the exact amount. I buy them in about a 5-pound bag, so I'm gonna just put them in my food processor and we'll grind them here. Now I don't want to just turn the food processor on because it does it so fast, it'll just turn it into a paste pretty quick. So I'm just going to pulse it until I get the desired texture that I want, and so we'll do that. So here's what the finished product looks like. It's just real small, tiny pieces of walnuts. Not a paste, but just really fine. So we'll turn this into our filling. So we're going to put all of the walnuts into a large bowl and add our milk and our sugar. Now the milk, 3/4 cup of milk, I have warmed it up. You don't want it hot, you just want it warm to the touch. And so I'm going to add that, and then I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of sugar. And then just mix it up, and that's all there is to the filling. That's really super easy. You're done. We're ready to move on to actually putting the cookies together. And my dough's been in the refrigerator for 45 minutes, so I think we're ready to move on. So now it's time to do the fun part. We're going to put these cookies together. So what we do is we're going to take one of these balls, and I'm going to dip it again into the powdered sugar just to coat the whole outside to keep it from sticking on the counter, because it does. This powdered sugar, it works back into the dough and then it's all sticky again. So I will roll it in the powdered sugar, and I'll put some powdered sugar on the counter, and then I'm going to just begin flattening it with my hands, and I'm just going to try and, you know, get it into a disc that's an even circle. And, you know, if you don't have a rolling pin, you could probably just finish this whole process just with your hands. We're going to want to get it into a circle about this big. But I love this little hand rolling pin. You can use a big rolling pin, whatever, but I really like this one. And I am going to link that in my blog as well if you're interested in finding one of these. And it's the same as that I do when I make a pie crust. I start in the center and I roll out to 12, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, back to 12 again. And if you just keep doing that, or maybe not even that many, I guess I do that with a pie because it's a bigger circle. But with this, you could just do 12, 3, 6, 9. You know, just start at the center, roll up to 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and back up to 12 o'clock. If you keep doing that, it's not going to get like a funny shape, oval or anything like that. It's just going to stay a nice perfect circle. So you're just going to keep doing that, and if you feel like it's getting a little bit tacky, we'll put some more powdered sugar on it, and maybe periodically kind of feel like if you can, you know, pick it up from the counter and make sure, put a little bit more powdered sugar. You just want to make sure this isn't going to stick to the counter. So if you keep it, you know, sprinkled with powdered sugar, you'll be fine. So once it's a big circle, this is a 2 tablespoon measure. I fill it to, I do a little bit less than 2 tablespoons. 2 tablespoons seems to be just a little bit much. So maybe just a little bit less. Put a spoonful of it right in the middle of the cookie, and then just begin, like maybe start at 12 o'clock, pull it up, and then kind of 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and hold it with this hand, and I'll show you some close-ups. You'll be able to see me doing it. But once you get it all, you know, folded up, then just kind of take it and just kind of push it all together, and it'll just kind of be however you want to shape it. It will look really pretty. And you know, if it's like, I'll put powdered sugar on my hands, and I'll kind of go like this to make sure it just stays in a nice perfect circle, and I'll just keep working with that. And then once it's done, I use a scraper, and I'll pick it up that way so that I'm not trying to pull it off the counter and maybe gouging a hole where all the filling's going to come out. And then I'll lay it on a parchment sheet lined cookie sheet. Now remember, these don't have anything that's going to cause them to rise, so you can put them fairly close on the cookie sheet. Like I'll put 3 across, 4 down. I can fit about a dozen onto a cookie sheet, so because they're not going to rise and get bigger. And then I'm just going to work through all these, and then once they're all done, we'll pop them in the oven and we'll be done. So I'll do it for you guys, but I'll show I'll maybe do a different angle where you can see my hands at work to maybe understand more of what I'm trying to say. So I'll do a couple, just, you know, from this angle. You guys can watch that, and then I'll change angles. So just a little bit. I'm going to move this out of the way. Just a little bit of sugar, and then like I said, I take it and I dip it in the powdered sugar on both sides, just kind of, and then I just smash it down with my hand really gently, because then see it starts cracking on the side. So just take your hands and push it like this to just kind of keep it from cracking. I mean, it's a lot of explaining, but when you do it, it's really not that hard. And once you do 1 or 2 and you get it down, it'll be really, really quick. I can finish, you know, 2 dozen of these pretty quick once I get back in the swing of it. And even if you mess up on your first one, maybe just take a ball of dough to practice on. And see, I picked it up to make sure I still could, that it wasn't sticking to the counter. Kind of rub that sugar all over it. And then I start at the center and I go 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And I just keep doing that. And that helps you keep it in a perfect circle. So I'll show you, I'll hold up about how big you want your circle. So this is about the size that you want. So I will kind of redistribute that sugar, and then I'll get my, you know, so like the milk, it starts separating from the walnut. So each time, maybe just kind of give it a stir again, and then a little less than 2 tablespoons, just plopped right in the middle. And then I will pick it up here, and then I'll pick it up here and hold it with this hand. And then pick it up here. Oh, I just lost this side. You just work with it. And then I'll grab these 2 and kind of push in the middle. And it kind of seems messy, like it might not be working, but if you keep working with it like I just did, you finally get it back under control. And you can kind of, you know, turn these so they look really pretty. And then I'll a lot of times put just a little bit more sugar, and I'll just go around like this. And if I see like this is sticking out a little too much, so I'm just going to kind of push it in. And I'll need to kind of reattach it like this. And then I always pick it up with this, just in case it's sticking. So I'm going to come over and show you guys close up what this looks like. See there? So that's done. This one's finished. We're going to set it on the cookie sheet, and then we're going to move on, and we're just going to make our way through all of the balls of dough. Alright, so I am just about finished. I went off so you guys didn't have to sit there and watch me make 26 of these. But on the last one, there's a couple things that I just want to make sure to remind you of now that I've made so many of them. I would say the top things that you need to pay attention to is number one, don't roll out your dough too thin, because it's really hard to get it off the counter, and then when you put the filling in, if it's too thin, it's just going to start seeping through and making a mess. I'd rather have a big thick piece of dough to hold all that liquid in and nuts, so just be careful that you don't roll in too thin. And I now that I've measured it out, that just a little under 2 tablespoons was just about the perfect amount of dough to go, or filling to go inside of each dough. And just as you're rolling it out, stop periodically and maybe add a little bit more powdered sugar just to make sure it's not sticking to the counter. A couple of mine stuck to the counter. So you want to make sure, just pull it up, and if it's, you know, just add a little more, not flour, but powdered sugar. So now you're going to preheat your oven at 375, and we're going to cook them at 375. So if I noticed my last 5 or 6 of these, the dough is getting soft. And so if you want to maybe just take out half of the dough balls to work with, leave the other half in the refrigerator, and then go and get those out instead of leaving all 26 on the counter at one time, that would be super helpful. So I think that's about it. We're going to pop these in the oven, and I'll show you guys what they look like when they come out. One last tip I want to leave with you is that because these cookies are made with a high percentage of fat, we've got the butter, we've got the cream cheese, it would be a good idea to keep them in the refrigerator up until the last minute of working with them, and then once you work with them, put them back in the refrigerator and let them get chilled again. The reason for that is when you have a product that you're working with that has a lot of fat, and then you're working with it with your hands, you're warming that dough up and it's melting, and then when you make the cookies and you're folding them up, and then you go and put them in the oven, they're going to have already begun to melt. And so when you put them in the oven, they're going to start flattening out. Now there's no way to keep the cookies, like I wished I could do them so where they look exactly like they do going into the oven as coming out. They are going to melt, and they are going to spread out a bit, but they're still going to be really pretty. But the best bet to keep them from completely melting all over the tray is because there's 26 cookies, in the beginning when we made them into balls, and then you put those in the refrigerator for 30-45 minutes before you started rolling them out, probably you should only get half of the amount of the dough balls out and leave the other half in the refrigerator. Work with the first half, make them into your cookies, put them on the cookie sheet, and then go put them back in the refrigerator. Then take the second half out and do the same thing again. And then I would suggest that you put all the finished cookies into the refrigerator for a good 30-45 more minutes so that it can get cold again and it can stiffen up. And then when the oven is preheated to 375, you don't want the oven to be like still preheating. You want it to be at a very hot 375, and then you put the very cold cookies straight into the oven. And what's going to happen is it's going to cook the outside of it, and it's going to hold it in the shape. It is going to melt a little bit, but it will hold it into the shape that that you've put it into, and then the rest of the time it will begin baking the inside of them. But hopefully with that really hot temperature and really cold cookie, it'll kind of set the cookie from melting too much. But I have made these before where I've left them on the counter, then I put them in the oven, and they just flatten out. They're still very pretty, but they're not anything like they would be if you chilled the dough right before you put it into the oven. So I think that's probably the main tip that I would give you as far as the dough, keeping it nice and chilled. So I hope you enjoyed making these cookies with me. I thought it was really fun, and I wanted to get this video out to you guys before the holidays because maybe you could you know, if you like to make cookies and give them as gifts, these are really pretty cookies to give out. So if you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. That really helps me and my numbers to, you know, get a thumbs up. And go ahead and subscribe and click the little bell, because you'll be notified every single time I put a recipe out, which is once a week. And you'll want to stay tuned, because I've got some really fun Christmas recipes for your Christmas table coming. So until next week, have a great week.